This was my favorite episode of all time, hands down. What I thought would be a goal setting discussion was an episode about so much more. I get to share with you who I am living life with and who's just impacting me so much and taking me to the next level. And I think it's going to impact you a lot. How was this past year for you? Should you look far into the future or should you focus on right now? How many goals should you have? Are you trying to control everything? Should we be talking about personal lives at work? We talk about a lot of that stuff. Great discussion from two guys I respect so much and have had so much impact on me. They're going to have a great impact on you. And at the end, we asked one question you need to answer for 2026. Hello and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I am extra excited for today's discussion. We're going to talk about goal planning in general, but what I'm really excited is two guys that I get to spend a ton of time with myself and have honestly impacted me dramatically, significantly over the last several years, not just on goal planning, yes, on goal planning, but also just in life in general and in every area of life. Pat, Flynn, and Bryan McFarland, how are you guys doing today?
Wonderful. Good to be back on.
I'm great, Phil.
And yes, both Pat and Bryan have been on the podcast before. It was when it was the Mueller Real Estate and Business podcast. But again, great friends of mine and have impacted me directly. So Pat Flynn, founder of Flight Builders, also a ton of experience and success previously in different roles and in different businesses, but just extremely driven, purpose-driven, and really trying to just help others fulfill their potential. And he's doing that. Also host of the Secret to Flight podcast. And then Bryan McFarland, my great friend, also owner and president of JDM Incorporated, creator of the Purpose-Driven Productivity System, and just a phenomenal both really just phenomenal business leaders, extremely intentional with their business and their personal lives. And again, just having a great impact on me. So I appreciate you guys coming on. We're going to talk about goal setting. And I just want to start with the question teed up. I'll start with you, Bryan. How do you so we're coming out of the year into a new year. How do you leverage and use what has happened this past year to kind of start to figure out what do I want to do next year? What's your process to reflect and think about that and how to use that?
I think that's a great question because I think most people get so pumped to start planning 2026 without taking inventory of 2025. What went well, what hurt, where you succeeded. And I think a great way to do this, and Phil and I actually went to, where did we go? We went to the islands about 2 years ago and did like a couples retreat where we did 20 or whatever year that was, reflections for the year and then goal planning for the future. But one of the things that we did during that time was we looked at all our pictures in our phone from the past year. And it just triggers things of, okay, this happened in January, this happened in February. And it starts like creating emotions, good and bad, throughout the year. And if you pair that with what the three of us do, I think a fantastic job on is really documenting our wins every week. So I read through all my wins starting in January. And then it just really starts compounding in my brain, like connecting this photo with this win, business or personal. And then I take that and then I'm like, okay, did that meet the goals though that I set for this year? Because that's really the litmus test, you know? So once I kind of go through that exercise and I start kind of journaling on it and seeing what 2025 really handed to me and the lessons learned and the wins and losses.
I think one thing to highlight there is when you look back in that way, there's so many more things that you probably accomplished in a year than you anticipate. Like if you have monthly or quarterly goals, a lot of times it's hard to, like, you always feel like you're behind or not getting a lot done. But when you look back a year, you can see that. By the way, what I remember about that trip is not that, but drinking margaritas under the tent where it was pouring down rain. Like, how are we going to get back? But that was definitely a fantastic trip.
He took over the bar and started making us margaritas. The people were not very happy.
Oh yeah, we did do that. That was that guy. I think that guy liked us, or he wanted us to get out of there quickly. But
very quickly.
Anyway, I digress. So Pat. And for the listeners, Pat is extremely dialed in on this, but they both are. Pat, how do you like, what differs from your approach or about your approach versus what Bryan said?
So I think where my mind goes when you ask the question, Phil, is that I think one of the most important parts of the entire thing is having a group of people you trust around you that you can bounce these ideas off. And just for everyone listening, like, we have the three of us talk every single week. With two other guys, and we've been doing it for years now, and having your guys' feedback helps me a ton. But to answer your question, the answer I would have given you at the end of 2024 going into 2025 is very different than the answer and what we talked about on our last call for how I feel about how 2025 went going into 2026. I have a past of very extreme accountability, trying to set smart goals, right? Which I think was great for that season of my life, where I don't set a goal like I want to meditate more. I set a goal like I will meditate 222 times this year and track it on a Excel sheet, right? And that served me really well, and it served my business really well for a long period of time. But what I'm getting at here is this year, especially as you reflect on the previous year, rather than just running the same playbook that you've been doing for the past 5 years, I think it's really important to understand that we all go through different seasons of life. And sometimes listening to your heart is really the best answer there. And extreme accountability gets shit done. 100%. You need clarity and accountability in any business you run. But our personal lives, which is what we're talking about now, in our personal goal setting, I feel, at least the season that I'm in at life, I need to step a little bit away from that because I'm so structured and I stress myself out over all these little goals. So what I look at reflecting in 2025 is I need to listen to my heart a little bit more and almost go with the flow a little bit more, just because that's the season of life that I'm in. And that's not advice I'm giving like everyone should do that. Like some people need to go the other way, right? And
that's what I was going to ask is how much of this, and Brian, maybe you would jump in here too, because you've been part of these conversations, like how much of our approach as we think about reflection and goal setting is based on, I think, two things: A, season of life, and B, personality type. Because the power of, Pat talked about our accountability group, and the power of our accountability group is like I'm listening a lot of times to Pat give Brian feedback or Brian give Pat feedback on their goals. And I'm just sitting there in the background taking notes, but also trying to figure out for who I am, my personality type, like what makes me tick, what's best for me. So Brian, is this like personality type in like seasons of life? How does this change?
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask you, Pat. Like, I could not agree with you more because I was struggling with that earlier this year where I took off any wearable tracking device because I was like, I don't want the data anymore.
Yeah.
So Pat, like you are the master of lifting up young talent. How would you advise like a 25-year-old, 28-year-old from what you just said, though?
I'm the interviewer, Brian. I'm the interviewer. I'm asking the question.
He's the one that made the comment.
Yeah. So I'm joking.
I'm guessing you would have them start, if they're dipping their toe into this, more of a structured habit tracker type of a manner.
Absolutely. And I'd keep it, my advice is always start really small. Don't read a self-help book or listen to Phil's podcast and decide that the next day you're going to start eating at a calorie deficit, waking up at 4:30, working out, meditating, journaling, and your goal is to do that every day for a quarter. Like that is an absolute recipe for failure. So with our young people that we have here that maybe haven't been exposed to goal setting or stuff like that before, if someone's never worked out before and they want a fitness goal that quarter, I always push them back. And if their goal is to exercise 5 times a week, I push them to do it twice a week, because that consistency and following through on something that's obtainable, in my opinion, is way more important than going balls to the wall right away. I see it all the time just in my office. Like people have like someone that's maybe overweight has a fitness goal, and all of a sudden they go from eating whatever they want to eating tuna fish bags at lunch and down to like 1,000 calories a day. And
it's not sustainable, right?
Month. I would say like when you're just getting starting, slow, obtainable goals are better because accomplishing them in the path that you're on is way more important than the accomplishment at that point. And that's kind of like where I'm at in my life now, is I've done the structured stuff for so long. I think I'm at a phase in my journey where it's time to be a little more loose with it, because I find that when I let that stress go a little bit, I have even more clarity on the future, and the most important stuff kind of comes to mind.
Yeah, that's gold there, Pat. And Brian, you talked about your tracking devices and everything else. Tell us about what you shifted when that came up for you earlier this year?
Yeah, so I shifted to Andy Frisella's Power List. So Andy Frisella is a pretty aggressive thought leader in the space, but is that what you're alluding to, Phil?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he has this super simple 5 things he's going to accomplish the next day. I was just talking to a bunch of guys about morning routines and what's your morning routine. And I had a very stringent morning routine for 10 years. Now I have a stringent evening routine. That's way more important to me than the morning routine. And one of those things is the power list. So 5 things I want to accomplish the next day while I'm laying in bed, I write those out. And that could be, personal and work related. One phone call I have to make. I want to meditate tomorrow. I want to get my cold plunge or whatever that is, because your weeks become a mess. So if you're like, I'm going to get in the cold plunge 5 times this week, well, all of a sudden, if you have the flu and you can't get in, you don't give yourself grace. But this allows you to give yourself a little grace. But if you don't hit those 5 things, then you don't win the day. So you're trying to win the day and you're trying to stack those wins. So yep. I shifted to that and it's been huge for me.
And I think it brings some flexibility, and like Pat was talking about, just trying to control absolutely everything, control 3 to 5 things and win the day. Because and also, if you're not feeling well, maybe I'm going to have a cocktail or 2 the night before, and like I'm just going to not have the energy, whatever it might be. Like, plan around that the night before and win the next day based on that. That's your power list, and then mark the win down. So I started applying that. I mean, that's just the power of this, of having your own accountability group. Like, it's so Pat talked about it, but Brian brought this up a couple of weeks ago and I started doing it. It's been really, really impactful. So I want to shift gears here a little bit to, okay, we've talked about reflection. We're getting a little bit into the goal planning, but that's just going to happen. This is fantastic. But so now, okay, we had a good year. There's some things that we, went really, really well. We're just, grateful for that. But we're also identifying some gaps or things we want to get better at and work on. Before we jump to next year, we try to take a longer view oftentimes. Is that, a vision for 10 years? Is that kind of identity and who we want to be? Is that purpose driven? How do you guys think about the longer term to shape what's going to happen this year? And I'll start with Pat on this one.
Yeah. So one exercise that was hugely powerful for me in 2025, and we've all done it together too, that financial finish line, but financial is only part of it, right? It's really like, I hate to call it like a life finish line, but hey, once you hit that net worth number or that free cash flow number, what is different? Like, what will you actually change about the way you operate with stress, your relationship with your wife, your kids, what you do for vacation, what you do in your free time, what you do with your friends, your lifestyle. And it's interesting. Like I have these goals, we all have big goals of where you want to be. And I tried to write down a list of how will my life actually be different when I hit this number. And I wrote down like 10 things. And almost all of those things, I want to say 9 out of 10, I can literally change right now. So how I look at the future and goal setting now is that we can live in a lot of stress because culturally success is tied to status and money and that sort of thing. And a lot of those things just matter much less than we think. And you can actually make a lot of those changes right now and at this current moment and live with less stress in the now because of that. I'm probably not articulating this perfectly, but I think how I look at the future is clarity on the future gives us better decision-making power in the now, but I think it can be detrimental sometimes to think that, hey, one day I'll be happy. One day I'll live stress-free on the road when I have this amount of money or this amount of free cash flow, because you're going to get there. And, another thing we've done together is we watched the Phil Stutz documentary together. It's like one true thing about life is there's always going to be uncertainty and there's always going to be work. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how many goals you crush. So how I look at the future is I think it's important to know where you're going but enjoying the now is incredibly, incredibly important too. It's cliche to say enjoy the journey, but your life is happening right now, right? So to think that this like form or this one day manifested version of you that's going to be way happier when you hit a certain net worth, it's unrealistic and it's not true. So I focus on the future, I set goals, but one thing I'm actively trying to do this year is enjoy the now and the journey a little more.
Yeah, and what I like about it is if you write 10, if that's 20 years, if that's, Pat, you brought a lot of these exercises, like, again, so impactful to me, and I think Brian would echo that, and hopefully vice versa too. But at your 80th birthday party, like, who's really going to be there? But when you ask those questions, you write that down. If that's 10 things, whatever future phase it is, ask the next question, which is, can I have that thing right? Like, can I have that right now? Because it's not really a thing we're going after. It's like a feeling and an emotion. For the most part, we can live all those things right now. Brian, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would probably add is, James Clear has this quote, and to paraphrase it, an hour of planning now can save you a decade of misguided efforts. So if you have the vision of where you want to be, and I honestly like what we did last year, like 20 years. I know that sounds crazy, but where you want to be in 20 years, if you have that vision and you bring that down to what you want to do this year to eventually live that vision, it just gives clarity in the moment. And the one thing I say to you guys all the time, so I do this in the different buckets of life, but one with relationships, like, I think it's amazing seeing those guys in their mid 60s that were business owners having breakfast 3 times a week. Like, I see those guys, I visualize that. I want that in my future. Well, if I want that in the future as a guy in my early 40s, I better start planting those seeds now to have those strong relationships now, that I can be belly laughing at 7:30 a.m., with the same 4 or 5 guys when I'm in my 60s.
And you can be doing that. I mean, you're starting that process. You're doing that right now. The level of the relationships won't be the same because you haven't known those guys for as long as it will be in 10 or 20 years. But you can start to, you can do that right now.
Yes. But if I'm not intentional now, those friendships won't be there.
Right.
They're going to be way more surface level.
Yeah, I really like that. So the 20-year. I mean, I think Brian, Brian, as he went through his goal planning process. Last year, we all did a 20-year, but he came back to it and he showed it again, and it really didn't change. But I think what's interesting about Pat, Brian, and myself is our kids are all similar ages. I haven't convinced Pat yet to go for number 5, so he's at number 4. We both have girl, boy, and he could have that little baby girl. But anyway, I don't think I'm going to convince him, by the way. But our kids are young. Brian's got 2 kids that are similar to our older kids' age too, But in 20 years, it really helps you think about, okay, we might have grandkids. Like all of our kids are going to be adults that are hopefully good, functioning, purpose-driven people in society, right? So, it's good for us because that shapes what we do with our kids now, and just it also, we think about it, but it really guides what we do, especially from a family perspective. So I like the 20-year lens, and maybe there's different lenses for different areas of life even. Pat, it looks like you want to add something.
It makes it tangible too. It's like my oldest is 8 right now. Like, you put a number on it. Like 20 years, she'll be 28. My youngest is 1. In 20 years, he'll be 21 years old. So you actually, it brings visions in your mind of man, should I be the drunkest person at my son's 21st birthday party? Maybe I should, right? It's actually it actually puts it in perspective of what's going to be happening. Nora's going to be 28 years old, out of college, doing her own thing. What am I doing? Am I still just grinding here at the flight office every day? And then it filters down to what does the business look like? So I love, but it's a double-edged sword. Right? Because if all you think about is life is going to be so much better when you have this amount of money and you're here, then you miss that time with them when they're young. And not that you miss it, but you maybe could have been more present.
But I think the most powerful thing you can do is if you're really present with them right now and you start to forecast 20, if you're really present with your kids and you're really purposeful in everything you do, guess what they're going to be when they're 25 and 30? They're like, if you go visit your parents a lot, like that's one of my goals is to visit more. If you go visit your parents a lot with your kids, they're going to see that. And hopefully in 20 years from now, they're going to visit you as adults. Right. So like, that's where it can be a double-edged sword, but be cautious of that. Like be aware that might happen to you and bring it back to like, if I'm just really present, like in the moment and engaged in like spending time with my kids now, that's what they're going to do with their kids too. So I think that's what's, powerful, but you're right, Pat. Just be cautious of the double-edged sword. Brian, do you have anything to add to that? Brian's just taking notes, so he's just
dude, I'm rewriting that because you said that last week and it hit me between the eyes so much about visiting my parents so that my kids will visit me. And to your point though, like that's where I think 20 years is powerful. Like if like you just did, Pat, like my kids are going to be this age, this age, this age. Well, then what's my relationship with Jane? What's my relationship with Jesse? Like we're not going to be just in the weeds taking the kids to travel soccer games nonstop. Like, what are we curating together? And it makes you think of that future to be like, oh crap, we got to make sure we're doing that now.
Yeah, love it. All right, so I want to shift you. So the long view. Now let's bring this together. So we've reflected on the past year. We kind of thought some different long view, 80th birthday, full life, 20 years, whatever it might be, and pick what's right for you. But so now we got to set goals for next year. How do we do that? Brian, let's start with you on this one.
So I set my goals in the 5 buckets of life, which for me is health, family, spirituality, business, and relationships. And what I do is, like we were talking about earlier, I kind of have my 20-year vision for each one of those categories. I bring that down to my 3-year goals and then my 1-year goals. And all those have to build on top of each other. So I'm pointing into that North Star of the 20-year. So I will have my, a couple goals in each one of those categories of life. One thing that we all are guilty of is making too many goals. So then really like refining that and making sure there's only a couple of those for each category. And then,
I'm laughing because that's me and I have too many. And Brian's like, hey, great. Like you have a lot of goals, but like, because sometimes we want to do so much. But even to Pat's point earlier, this depends on where you are in your goal setting. Like if you never set goals before, don't have 20 or 30 goals. Like, Brian said a couple of goals. I think he means like 1 or 2 in every area of life, especially if you're starting. And even if you're further into it, like really big goals, and maybe there's some other ones, but like we can't compromise these. Sorry, Brian, I cut you off there.
Oh no, you're totally good. And like, let's say your relationships are super strong and you feel like you don't need a goal in that. Don't make one up, because it just becomes distraction and white noise, So, but then I think we're all, and I'll let you guys kind of talk to it, a big fan of breaking that down quarterly and living quarterly lives. So I'll let you guys kind of speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar. We've been talking for a while. Brian is like one thing we do at Flight is we list out those 8 areas of life that we talk about a lot, and we do a paragraph or bullet points of what the end game looks like, financially, relationships, lifestyle. What does your work look like in the end game? And those filter down into, as you said, what's one thing you can do this year that gets you closer to that? What's one thing you can do this quarter that gets you closer to that? So you start with a big list of stuff. And what we've done a lot this year is we meditate on December 2026. So you make that real. We've done leadership meditations. We did a meditation on Vision Day where the exercise we did was you're sitting here right now in December 2025 and you have a magic pen, and anything that you write down for December 2026 is within reason is going to come true. This is the one 5-minute opportunity you have to do this. And write down as many things as you want. Most people can't answer that question, right? So when you take that purposeful time to actually put yourself in, like 1 year is going to be here. It seems so far to look at Christmas 2026, but it just happens so quick. So when you meditate on that and really think about, put yourself in December 2026 in your mind and what has been accomplished for this to be a fantastic year, that will give clarity on your big list of goals you have based on the future. And I'm a big fan of less is more. also. But what we've done this year in flight, which I think is cool, is when we did that at Vision Day, that meditation, everyone could only pick one. And they highlight in their alignment sheet, they highlight that one goal in green. That is like, this is the one thing that needs to happen this year.
Right.
For it to be a fantastic year. And they're all over the place, right? Some of them are money focused, some of them are business and career focused, some of them are financial or family or lifestyle. So that's what's really helped me this year is like, if 2026 went absolutely perfect, what needs to happen? And you look at things through that lens, and it can give you clarity on what to write down.
Yeah, we asked that question. We had a business centers breakfast the other day, and we asked the question. It's December of 2026. And it was a business discussion, but our business, we had a successful year in business because, and then they had to fill in the blank, and it says how, and then it said also write down like how does this make you feel, and like really think through, okay, what do I want to be saying at the end of the year? Pat, I want to come back to you in a second. I want to get Brian's take on this. I'm going to come back to you so you can think about it on just as business leaders, so whether it's a mid-level manager at a company, a business owner, business leader, whomever it is, you guys talk business and personal lives around goals. So that's what I'm going to come back to that. Before I do, Brian, I want to get your take on just the goal setting process, 2026, how you approach that, and anything to add to what Pat said too.
Just like what I was saying before, I'm a big fan of like, not to do like a product thing here, but like the Full Focus Planner is a quarterly book. So you're putting down your goals for that quarter that obviously lead to your yearly goals. And one thing I did want to say about the yearly goals is look at them every day. If you can write them every day, you're so much more likely to achieve them. Don't have them, like they always say, lost in some drawer, but I reread my goals every single night. And I think the power of that is just like I don't even know what the statistics are, but they have to be so much higher of you actually achieving them. So that's just one little tip to give to everybody, and it's going to excite you. If you just continue to revisit them, it's just going to continue to throw like kindling on that fire.
Yeah. And I know Pat, so Pat talked about the exercise to really put yourself in the end of 2026 and really go through that process. I love the concept of just keeping those in front of you. I do not do that a good enough job of that. Like that's where, Brian is so dialed in on this. And I know that Pat also believes in set the annual goal, but really the annual goal might be a little bit more generic, like maybe not 250 meditations or whatever Pat said earlier, but hey, I'm going to really focus on meditations, but then he's probably going to have a quarterly goal that can really be measurable and dial it in, because life might change. Like things might shift a little bit over a quarter. So I think we're all advocates here of setting annual, like little bit of a blend between it's not a 10-year vision. It's a little more structured, but really a dialed in quarterly goal. So I want to talk, Pat, about as a business leader, again, anybody that's leading a team of any sort, Flight does a phenomenal job of talking about business goals and personal goals at work, which is, maybe scary for some owners. Like, I don't want to, there's a conflict here. You're talking about how do you help them hit their financial goals, which, if you had a limiting mindset, maybe that says they have a career path that doesn't include flight even long-term, but you have a very abundant mindset about this. So I'm very comfortable asking you because I know you so well. How has that process in bringing personal goals into business gone for you?
That's the only reason I do this now. That's what brings me all of my joy that I have is to watch people do that, to watch people who have never set a goal before set one, and all of a sudden one quarter they do a date night with their wife. Their goal is 12 in a quarter, and they do it, and their life changes because of it. We had a guy that started doing the daddy-daughter days with his daughter, and he started like 3 years ago, and he's still doing with them now. I think there's a real the reason that I'm even doing this in the first place and going down this road and pushing growth in our business is not the financial piece. That became very empty for me about 5 years ago. So when me and my partner split in 2023, and I had to do some soul searching on what road to go down, I had to do some work on myself to figure, and you guys remember that time period of like what really makes you happy. And it's this stuff. It's watching a 22-year-old guy with a little construction experience that's never read a book or set a goal before come in here and have his first alignment with me or Miguel and be like, this stuff's stupid, I'm not telling you anything. But then he goes to book club a little bit. He starts dabbling here, starts dabbling in the alignment sheet, and before you know it, he sets a goal.
That's
and before
awesome.
you know it, he's all in. So there's an extreme power you get when people's personal goals are aligned with the goals of the company. And even if they're not aligned, if you have a company full of people that are setting personal goals for themselves every quarter, what do you think is going to happen with their business goals? What do you think is going to happen with the relationship with their wife, the relationship with their family or their church or whatever it is? You're going to create an organization of people that are accountable to themselves, accountable to the goals, and business just takes care of itself.
This is good.
It's like you don't have to, it doesn't even matter what business you're in. If you have a group of people like that are constantly getting 1% better on the personal side every day, you create an extreme amount of power. And what happens is and those people affect their sisters and their parents, and you can make a massive impact that way. And that's where my whole joy comes from.
Yeah. And think about, I mean, first of all, you know, the key here is you have to have the mindset. Like, people are either setting goals personally that you don't know about and they're not talking about, or they're not at all and they don't have a process in place. And the ripple effect over to your business is real. But the bigger ripple effect, you know, you can tell why I enjoy getting to talk to Pat. Like, he just challenges us so much. He's so dialed in. But the ripple effect he's going to have, but then his business leaders and his team is going to have, not just on other people and their customers, but also on each other, is so powerful. I mean, your impact, like this, you know, this is also maybe a phase of life and financial phase of life too, a little bit. Like, Pat's gone through those phases a little bit, where he has the maturity and mindset, and like he's in the phase where he's won that game kind of, but so he realized, okay, it doesn't feel that great. He's on to the next game. Like, it's about impact for him. So man, that was an awesome little segment there. I mean, we could do this all the time. Yeah, Brian.
If more leaders were like Pat, where let's just say somebody's personal goal is like, I'm going to get my breathwork certification, you know? And then Pat is at some amazing event that he goes to in Montana, like he does every month. And he meets some breathwork guru and has some book, and then he can share that with that person. He would never know that they had some random goal like that. Then he can like speak to them, and all that's going to do is make them feel empowered. It has nothing to do with work, but now they're more empowered as they show up to work with Pat.
And you don't need to be the founder of Flight Builders or JDM to be able to do this. Like, that's what I would say too, is like, if you have a 2-person team that in a business that you own, or a 4-person team, or just a group of peers in a small group that you work in, you can start this process in an accountability group and meeting together and like just building goals together. And it doesn't need to be so like Pat on their website. You can go to their website. They have a system for it, but it doesn't need to be perfectly dialed in. Like, it is going to be way better in January of 2027 than it will be in 2020. Just start doing this and go. And like, the impact without being a formal titled leader you can have on an organization that you're in is so incredible. So, man, this, by the way, this is a lot of fun. Like, you guys are getting me excited. This is really neat for me. So I appreciate it. So I kind of jumped there, but so we've kind of established, we've had some good concepts about how to set goals. So now, like, Brian, you talked about every single night, okay, I'm going to write down the goals, like keep them in front of me, which is kind of a system of accountability for you. But let's talk about, okay, so now it's in February, and as Pat said, like, life's going to happen. You have a great plan until you get punched in the face. You know, things just happen. How do we hold ourselves accountable, keep coming back to this, and make sure we keep progressing and don't get just completely distracted by April or May, where we're just kind of just going through the motions?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest mistakes people make, and Pat kind of alluded to it earlier, is if they're like, hey, I'm going to work out twice a week. And my goal is to work out twice a week for, you know, the entire year, or Q1 if they're doing quarterly goals. Well, instead of doing that, be like, I'm going to work out, you know, 24 times this quarter. Because in case you get sick, in case something happens, and then one week you're going to work out 4 times instead of 2 times. So then you don't feel like you failed because you missed 1 week. Not like these, maybe the cadence is twice a week, but if you're like this quarter, the total number is X, then if you fall a little behind, or you're going on vacation or whatever, you can still achieve your goal. And I think that's like something where people, when they come February, March, just fall off because they didn't achieve that weekly goal or whatever cadence they're on.
Yeah. Love it. Pat, what would you add to that?
Yeah, my mind went to exactly what Brian said, but one last thing I was gonna add on what you were talking about before, which has to do with this, is I think extreme clarity around business goals is incredibly important. I share with you guys our one sheet for Flight this year, and we have just one piece of paper for leadership that these are the key numbers by the end of the year. And your question, what if you have things you can't control? What if things turn in March and this plan you put forward doesn't make sense anymore? I think it is incredibly important to go back and look at it. But at the same time, you have to balance it with, just because this is hard doesn't mean we can just let ourselves off the hook and reduce the numbers or something like that. So we try to hold the line with being intelligent, with being first principles with the decisions we're making, and not making an emotional decision based on things being hard. But 100%, things change in life, and sometimes you have to adjust. But if you have clarity, like we talked about earlier, on 10 years, 20 years, it makes those adjustments in the now way easier, and you're not making emotional adjustments in the now, because when you were in a calm, meditative state thinking about the future, that is what you want. So it can give you clarity in the now, and the adjustments become okay.
Yeah. And how do you guys, so annual and clarity, and you could extreme clarity, and that, you guys are getting to know Pat, but he's these guys are just both so dialed in. So, okay, we have annual goals, we have quarterly goals, but day to day, week to week, who's involved in this? What does that look like for you, Brian? What, help our listeners, if there's one thing they can do, or maybe one last piece of wisdom, even for them as they're thinking about their goals for next year, that you would just recommend, whether it's the process or not, just one piece of wisdom, what would you say that would be?
Probably something you echo on here all the time, which you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. So having a few people that know about your goals, and that can be your accountability buddy, or you can share on a weekly cadence, to just have some ownership. So you're not in a box executing on your own. We are lucky enough that the 3 of us meet every week for the last 5 years, and you guys hold my feet to the fire, I hold your feet to the fire. And I think that really helps a lot of people stay on track. I think we're wired where we could do it on our own, but it definitely makes it fun, especially celebration, because we can celebrate the wins when we hit that goal, and it feels good, because if you hit that goal in a box, it's not as fun. So I really encourage, creating that group that can help you along the way.
And a big part of that is not just celebrating the wins, but we inevitably all have challenges, whether that's business or personal lives, all the time, it comes up all the time, and we have a lot of discussions about it. But Brian, who should be in that group? How do we figure out who I can, I've never heard of an accountability group before. Now I want to put one together. What are some key characteristics of that group as I think about forming that?
Value alignment. So first, you need to know your values and do some soul searching. There's tons of exercises out there to really figure out your core values. And then those people that you team up with need to have alignment with those values.
Yep. Pat, what would you add?
I would add that just from a business lens on this, your question of what does these annual goals look like on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, that people will transition based on where they're at in their business career, right? If you are just getting started in real estate or sales or whatever, and you're just getting rolling, it's all on you. And that's a simple measure of extreme accountability. If you're a new real estate agent, then what does it look like to do $5 million of business in 2026? It's very easy to work that backwards and say, I need to go to Starbucks and meet somebody new X amount of times a day. I need to make 30 phone calls a day to my sphere. I need to do X, Y, and Z on the day-to-day in order to hit where I'm going. Where we're at in flight right now is we have an organization of about 46 people, 7 leaders. So what that looks like for me now is each of those we've identified at the highest level, which we keep starting with that, right? It's like, what does the end look like? We've identified for 2026 at the highest level, these are the most important numbers this year. It's not as simple as that, right? As you said, Phil, you don't just throw those numbers out there and it happens. Like all of them, things have to happen day to day, week to week to hit those numbers. But if you have fantastic leadership and they have financial goals that are aligned with the company and they have personal goals that are aligned with where they want to go, they are going to set the correct weekly, daily, monthly actions that push you to the track to end up where you want on that final KPI. So step 1 is identifying those KPIs. Step 2 is putting one person in charge of a particular API and giving them guidance on what numbers need to happen and what needs to happen in order to get there. But we're at a point now where like I can't micromanage that. We have high-level people that need to be able to manage their own teams, and they need to figure out what KPIs need to happen on a daily, weekly basis in order to hit those numbers. And then it's as simple as holding people accountable to it. Like everything we're talking about is so simple, right? But it's just 99% of people don't put that initial work in to figure out what the end looks like. That's why when you ask someone, hey, what's a perfect year look like for you in 2026? Most people can't answer that question. Most people think they want something because of culture or Instagram, but the real power is like looking inside yourself and inside your heart and figuring out what matters to you and why, and then executing on that.
Yeah. Brian, it looks like you want to add something. Maybe not.
No, when you were ending there, Pat, it made me just think of Phil. I know you watched or listened to Phil, like the Jelly Roll Rogan interview. And
I want to hunt now, though.
What's that?
I want to go hunting more now after listening to that discussion.
But like a guy that's accomplished so much, Jelly Roll, but how fired up he is because he started, how do I want to put this? He stopped lying to himself.
Yeah.
And he started accomplishing his goals and doing the mundane on a daily basis. And that dude was on fire in that interview.
Mm-hmm. He was.
He loves himself. He loves himself finally because he's lost 200 pounds and he feels good and he can have sex with his wife and he can do like the cool things, like he can go hunting now, like all the important things in life. And a lot of these goals, the end result is more self-love, and the power of self-love can just completely change the paradigm of your life. Yeah.
Wow. You guys, this is not even close my favorite episode because I think there's a little bit of a lens. Like this is like, if you're thinking about, I would say a couple of things, but if you're thinking about one thing, figure out some people that you think you're aligned with values on and start talking to them weekly. It is not like you can mess this up dramatically. And honestly, the value that I say the most, like find growth-minded people that just want to be better and start getting around them. If you guys or gals or whomever share that individual value, there's so much you can gain from this. And like take my word for it because of the discussion we just had with two other guys, us three and some others that have been hanging out with each other every single week for a long, long time. And you guys, I'm so appreciative of coming on this, taking your time because you're busy. But more importantly, the last many, many years, 4 years, is it 4 years or 5 years, Brian? I think it's been 4. You guys didn't invite me. You didn't invite me at first. You were late to the party, brother. Yeah. You guys didn't invite me at first. That's what it was. So that's what I heard. But honestly, if you can maybe see some of that, all the things I talked about in the last 2 years on this podcast and this show, so much of it I'm stealing from these two guys right here. So I'm just so grateful, so thankful. Is there anywhere you guys want to direct people? I know you're probably going to say no, but why don't you tell them a little bit more about your company and how they can find out more about you?
I'd say first just to comment on what you said is I think the common theme of everything we talked about today is it's so incredibly simple. It's just the discipline to do it. It's as simple as finding a group of guys and talking once a week. It's fucking hard for us to carve this time out. And like, I'm sure there's weeks where you guys don't feel like jumping on that call. Like, you probably have something else you could be doing. And we have the discipline to each other and the relationship with each other that we hold each other accountable to show up on time and be there every single week. And after 5 years, it's become a habit. But it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy to find that group. What's going to happen to, unfortunately, a lot of people that listen to this and want to implement it, and I say this as a challenge, but you're going to have all this energy and everyone's going to be setting goals, and then it'll fizzle out in 6 weeks. Just look at the gym memberships that happen on January 1st that all fizzle out by mid-February. Starting small is so important. Like, even if you're meeting with a group once a quarter at first and it changes to once a month, because once a week is a lot. But absolutely, starting small, I think, is the most important thing here.
Anywhere you want to direct people, Pat, before I go to Brian?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of this stuff on our website, flight.builders. And what you can download on that website is we use an exercise called Vivid Vision. And there's something special and magical about a 3-year. We've talked about 20-year. We're talking 80. We're talking 80th birthday party. But from a business sense and personal as well, 3 years is short enough to where you can kind of see the end there, but not too long. Not too long to where it's just like, oh my God, that's way out in the future. My 80th birthday party is so far away. I don't even want to think about that. So we do our 3-year vision every 3 years. So 2026 October, the one we wrote in 2023 is done. So we're actually doing another one this year for 2029. And you can download that right off our website and like check out how we talk about it. It's something we talked about in the call too, is act like you're already there. So our document that we wrote in 2023 is as if we were already in 2026. It said, we are operating this way. This is how much we're building. This is what the team looks like. And it's powerful to do that for yourself too. So there's tools on our website to do it on a personal level for what we talked about. Brian said the end goal, and it filters down to this year and next 90 days. We have those templates on our website that you can.
If you're thinking about this personally or for your business, please check that out. Brian?
Yeah. And Pat, you've shared that with bankers, right? Like,
yes,
people that you wanted. I mean, that's how powerful this document is.
Everybody that'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm most active on LinkedIn, so you can search my name on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm most active. So.
All right, Mr. Humble Brian, not sharing too much, but he's Brian, you guys, Pat, this has been absolutely fantastic. And seriously, the most fun discussion I've had. I didn't know how the 3-person discussion went, but I appreciate you guys. It went as smooth as it could because of you guys. So thanks so much. I just encourage you, check out Flight, check out Brian on LinkedIn. We're building out our accountability tool too, thepurposematrix.com. So you're going to be able to check that out here really soon. For the Purpose Matrix, signing off.